My name is Shawif Siruz. I am an artist and curator and programming director of Clarion Alley Mural project. This is the project called In Honor of, which includes, it's a multifaceted programming with performances, mural and talks and everything. I gathered a lot of human rights activists, artists, writers to talk about what's happening in Iran and to not only be a witness to what we keep hearing, but also take an action, basically.
And who are these women? Talk about the stories of
these are the women. There are 7 women who are human rights activists. Each of them are advocating for one issue in Iran. Children, like Athena Daemi, she is advocating for children's rights. Nasrin Sotoudeh, she's a lawyer, and so on. I thought that it's really important that we talk about the issues that's happening here in Iran, here and everywhere. It doesn't matter.
It's an international issue.
Yeah, it's an international issue. It's not only in Iran, but it's important that we all speak up and talk about all the issues.
And it's a beautiful day here in San Francisco.
Yeah, it is 80 degrees.
Unusual, but it's dry heat.
It is. I think it's an Indian
How
song.
long have you worked here at this project?
A long time. I think the project shaped from February, I guess.
And how many people helped you with this project?
There are a lot of artists involved in this project. I never count them, actually. That's really
Many.
Yeah, there are so many. Yeah, and it's half of the project also happening in Artist Television Access, which there is a window over there, and the artists are activating the window as well. They all experienced prison, or their loved one were in prison. So.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. We are Penta, and we are here to honor amazing women, the prisoners of conscience, and hopefully there will be no prisoners in the world ever for their beliefs and their thoughts, and hopefully we have better days every day. So thank you for joining us, and we are Penta again, and thank you.
نگاه کن هنوزم میریزه از این خونه ها رنگ ظلمت من و تو هنوز اینجا نشستیم خیره به عکسای قدیمی له شده لحظه زیر اضطراب نداریم حس جدیدی گم شده اون پرتو چشمان پشت یه درد غریبی گذشتم از این خونه گذشتم منی که وجودم گذاشتم نبودی ببینی چی از دنیا گرفتم که دادم همه خاطرات که قصه نور و مهتاب روی پنجره ها تابیده یکی هست اون بیرون نشسته پشت درخت ها مخفیه صدا میزنه میگه بیا پیشم من و تو تنها کافی اونجا گذشته غایبه دیگه نخواه بذار ببینم چشماتو اونجا همیشه ما کامله گذشتم از این خونه گذشتم منی که وجودم گذشتم نبودی ببینی چی از دنیا گرفتم که دادم همه خاطراتو
And I'm the author of Children of the Jacaranda Tree, which talks about the 1980s in Iran and the political repression that followed the revolution in 1979 and the executions of mass executions of political prisoners in 1988. And so my collaboration with Shaqaiq started when she told me about this mural, which is about prisoners of Iran today. And so she wanted me to give a talk at her opening. So we have been collaborating ever since. We have a month of other installations coming up at ATA. And I have a book reading coming up always at the ATA gallery. So it's a wonderful collaboration that we have with many other artists who are involved, all in remembrance and in honor of political prisoners in Iran.
So they're not forgotten.
So they're not forgotten, exactly.
And who are these women? Can you talk about these women?
These are only 7 of many prisoners right now. Only 7 faces of them are men and women. They're teachers, union leaders, environmentalists, child rights advocates, lawyers, teachers. So basically the entire society in a way is now under repression, and so it's not just political activists anymore, but anybody who does something that is not to the liking of the hardliners of the regime.
And the young people don't know about even the revolution and freedom. There's a lot of anger about young people. They don't have a future. They feel
very much under stress, both domestically by the regime and the clampdown that's been going on, and also again by the introduction of sanctions, by the threat of war that's been hanging on the country, which definitely does not do anything to sort of alleviate the situation, and actually worsens it a lot. So the stress and the pressure is coming from every side, and yes, they do feel kind of like closed in under all of this. Yeah.
So you hope to reach people in the United States and also show their solidarity with the people of Iran? Is that fair?
Absolutely. I think that history has always shown that even in America too, there are people who are against war, who are fighting against this sort of tendencies of some of American governments.
Repression, racism, racist
exactly,
killings.
A lot. I mean, this is a country that's going through a lot as well, and it's fighting back and it's rising. And so I do think that we all have this in common, all of the countries now. I don't think there's just one single country now that needs to sort of fight against, the echoes of fascism, but everybody. So I hope that this sort of event also bring that to light as well, that we're all fighting against what our government stand for.
By folks all over the world and locally, including the city of San Francisco itself through its tourism agency. And that is a powerful responsibility to curate and present one of the most visited public art spaces, physically and virtually, in San Francisco. And the attribute that often distinguishes camp as a significant destination is our commitment to supporting and providing a public space for the visual narratives of those who are often marginalized and disenfranchised. So in camp, board president and artist, Sepideh Gholian, yes, give it up for Sepideh, brought the idea of honoring and calling attention to hundreds of women and men who are prisoners of conscience in Iran and who are fighting for social and political justice. We saw the project as a critical one to support and present in the name of human rights. Thank you, Sepideh, for your resolute commitment to developing, directing, and making this project a reality. You are a true inspiration, and I have deep respect for you and your work to use art as a force for social change. Thank you. I would also like to thank all the participating artists for your thoughtful and powerful work. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of this. And for our presenting partner, ATA, Artist Television Access, which there will be an opening. It's just down the street at 20th and Valencia. Later tonight at 6 p.m. there are cards on the table that gives the program for that. Deep gratitude to our funders and supporters, United for Iran. Yes. And the Zellerbach Family Foundation. We could not have made this happen without you. Thank you so much. Finally, a big thank you to camp's board members and volunteers, and to our fiscal sponsor, Independent Arts and Media. Without a supportive team, none of this work is possible. Thank you. So I will now turn the podium over to Sepideh Gholian. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. Sorry that it's narrow, that you cannot come, but you can come closer if you want. You can sit also so that people behind you can see as well. I want to thank you so much, everyone, for being here today. It's been an honor to be able to work with so many amazing people in this project. I would like to thank all organizations who have participated in this program, such as Clarion Alley Mural Project. Specifically, thank you so much, Megan. United for Iran, Diaspora Art Connection, Zellerbach Family Foundation, Artist Television Access, Arcana, and all artists who have helped make this project happen. None of this would have happened without any of them. Today we are living in a world among dictators. It's sad to see how the world is moving forward, but it just means that we all need to be stronger and fight for our rights, for each other's rights, for us and the future. Today, Iranians are not the only nation who is dealing with injustice, both domestically and by international forces. These geopolitical power games have led to the suffering of so many people. It has kept families apart, imprisoned people for their ideals, created instability, created economic crisis, and disrupted hopes for a better future. 5 years ago, we drew a mural on the opposite side of the alley in memory of 3 Iranian writers and poets who have had an everlasting impact on Iranian literature and culture. Today, we decided to honor those who have bravely stood up for social justice and civil rights in Iran. We want them to know that they are not alone, that we are standing by them, that they will not be forgotten, and we honor their path. Now I would like to give you a brief description of In Honor of the 1 month project of art, literature, and performances in remembrance of hundreds of men and women who have been taken as political prisoners in Iran in recent years. The project includes a mural that you can see behind me, which is featuring 7 women who are currently in prison in Iran: Nasrin Sotoudeh, Athena Daemi, Niloufar Bayani, Sepideh Gholian, Zeinab Jalalian, Sepideh Gholian, Athena Daemi. They are only a few faces of various civil rights movements, including freedom of religion, workers' rights, women's rights, environmental rights, and so many more. Today's programming includes introduction. We will have Firuzeh Mahmoudi, Executive Director of United for Iran, presentation by Sepideh Gholian, author of Children of Jacaranda Tree. Nick Nazafta is going to read a letter by, where is Nick? Oh, wherever you are. From Education is Not a Crime, and she's going to read part of a letter of Athena Daemi to her son. We have introduction by Diaspora Art Connection and Nazi Kaviani, who is supporting the Iranian community numerously in San Francisco and Bay Area. And she's an executive director and founder of Diaspora Art Connection. We have music by Adrian Shamsad and Penta Group. And we have performance by Baharak and Behnaz Khalegi, and AR by Snuggle for Survival, which they will come and explain about their project. Every Wednesday in the month of October, there will be a performance right here by Mehregan Pezeshki. In front of the mural in support of all women who are arrested and imprisoned for standing against mandatory hijab and sexual abuses that are dictated as a law to women in Iran. So join her every Wednesday, 6 to 7 p.m. And the program continues in another venue, Artist Television Access, ATA, which is a San Francisco-based artist-run nonprofit organization that promotes culturally aware underground media and experimental art. There will be a window. One of the windows, the left window, is going to be activated weekly by artists, writers, and activists with installations and performances telling stories of their or their loved ones' imprisonment. The first week is Mehregan Pezeshki. Today is open reception of that, so don't miss that. It's going to be 6 to 8 p.m. She is an artist and photographer with a great installation on the one window. Second week of October, we have Naz Khorram, artist and sculptor, who has generously supported the project with Arcana. It's a cafe. It's going to open in Mission. It's going to be so amazing. So stay tuned about that. The third week of October, we have Snuggle for Survival, which they come and talk about the whole project. There's a flyer over there, and there's an app that you should download. It's going to be so cool, and it's also showing all the prisoners, with the app, all the prisoners on the walls, in wherever you are. Fourth week, it's Sholeh Askari, myself, and Sepideh Gholian, artist and writer, who is also performing. Sholeh is performing tonight at ATA, and also Sahar is going to have a book reading in conversation with Megan later, which I explained. And so October 11, we have film screening, and In Love I Live by Panta Bahrami, a filmmaker based in New York. October 20th, we have video by Vahid Zamani, artist and filmmaker, and some performances that to be announced. And then October 30th is book reading of Children of Jacaranda Tree by Sepideh Gholian in conversation with Megan Wilson. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here. I will be here if you had any questions, and I will just leave it to Firuzeh to talk more about it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely a gorgeous day to be here with you, to honor these brave women. I'm going to start with a few of their stories. Athena Daemi is a Baha'i woman, And she's a member of the underground Baha'i University in Iran that's accredited. Students in Iran who are Baha'i, who don't denounce their religion and are public about it, are banned from education. So there's the underground university, and in 2011 they raided the university and arrested many of the professors. In 2015 she was sentenced to 4 years, and her husband Peyman to 5. And since then they've seen their son, who was then 6 years old, once a week for an hour. Athena Daemi is a children's rights activist. She has been sentenced to 5 years in 2014. And what I love about her is nothing silences her. While she was in prison, she still was vocal about her other passion, abandoning of the death penalty, and she has received another 25 months for that. And we have Niloufar Bayani here. She is an environmental activist. Environmental activism in Iran is on the rise, as it is in most of the planet naturally, and the government of Iran is putting a lot of pressure on. Last year they arrested 55 environmental activists, including her, and in her court hearing this year she mentioned that she's been in solitary confinement, she's been beaten, and been threatened with execution. It is so important to advocate for these brave women and men in prison for multiple reasons. How they're treated, the people in the front lines who are using their rights the most, be it the minorities or the activists or the human rights defenders, is by definition the conditions of human rights in Iran, because they are exercising it the most. And it has ripple effect. If they are treated better, then other people look to them, and they too get the signal that I can do this without huge precautions and oppression. And of course they move their good work forward. And governments like Iran, oppressive governments, their number one goal is to break the spirit of political activists so that they have no hope, they think they're forgotten, that their work doesn't matter and is futile. And countless times, time and time again, people come out of political prisoners and say that when their family visited them and told them about the rally or the online campaign or the Mural project, it gave them hope. It's what kept them going at night. So this is why we do this work and honor them, their incredible work. I started United for Iran about almost over 10 years ago. And we do various things. A big portion of our work is advocating for improving human rights in Iran. And the foundation of that work is the Iran Prison Atlas. It's a database of the political prisoners in Iran, the prisons they are held in, and the judges that sentence them. One can look at, for example, the profile of Zeinab and hear the details, see the details of why she was in prison, what activism, what religion, what ethnicity, what prison she is in, and who was her judge. Or one can zoom out and see systematic patterns of abuse by the judge, mistreatments in that prison. So it's a holistic database. One can see what Kurds, she is Kurdish, what Kurds have been in prison, or what women, and see patterns. Another project that I want to tell you about, Shaqqa briefly mentioned, is one that we're partnering right now with Survival, Snuggles for Survival, and it's called Happy Face. Hidden Face, I apologize. And it's an augmented reality app where these political prisoners have a different reality that we can see. If you have an iPhone, you can download it. If you have an Android phone, you can follow it on Instagram and Facebook, and the information's on that mirror, by that mirror. And why women? I think it's so important to advocate for women for multiple reasons. One, we cannot have human rights, equality, freedom, when the largest population of marginalized population on the planet is not equal. Women are the largest marginalized population. And we see that here, we see that in Iran. Legally, Iranian women are half a man as a witness. We cannot divorce legally or have custody of our children. We cannot be president. And here too, we haven't had a female president. And reproductive rights are in jeopardy, which are absolutely human rights. and a case may go to Supreme Court recently. And we need to advocate for women because they're brave badasses that are getting the work done all around the world, right? Yes. We have Niloufar and Greta fighting for the next generation, for the environment, for our very existence. We have Athena and Emma Gonzalez fighting to stop violence, to end execution and gun violence, and for our children. And we have Azita and we have Mural fighting for education and for the next generation. And I think that's the reason why they're being oppressed even more currently in Iran, right? So recently we're seeing more oppression. There are more women in prison, political prisoners in prison now, that almost double than we have had in past years. And if you don't cover in Iran, which legally you have to, it's by law a 6-month sentence. People are getting 17 to 18-year sentences because these men are scared and don't know what to do. And the only thing they know is to press more, like the same as here. People don't know what to do with AOC or Ilhan Omar or the squad, so that's their way. But the genie is out of the bottle, and these women are taking space in alleys and streets and parliaments, in prisons, and that's why we need to work on women's issues. And I think we're here for many reasons. Yes, to advocate for change in Iran and be of support, but what comes to mind to me is one of my favorite quotes by Lila Watson, an Aboriginal Australian activist. And I'm paraphrasing it, so I may not get it exactly right. If you are here to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you're here because your liberation is intertwined with mine, let us work together. That's why we're here. Because if we want peace and justice and freedom, it takes all of us around the planet to work towards that, right? And one second. Where was I? And our political governments, dictators, they know this is all intertwined. That's why they engage with each other. That's why they gravitate towards each other, so they can justify their corruption and crime. And they also stop access to internet and information because they know that the people power also interact, and if they do, everything is intertwined. So in the same token that they build off of each other, so do we. We learn from each other, we inspire each other, we support each other, and that's how we win. And I do believe that we are winning. So a couple of good news from Iran this week. This is my son, Kaz. Hi, Kaz! He's always getting embarrassed because I'm always dragged. First of all, I have to drag him here. He missed a football game. But, so Kaz's dad is American, and until this week, he could not, if he so choose, be an Iranian citizen or get a passport. But this week he can, because now he can. It's a huge one. And Iranian women have been fighting nearly 40 years since the revolution for having the simple right of attending a soccer game in Iranian stadiums. And countless women have gone into prison for this. A woman sacrificed her life last month, and if you don't know about her, Blue Girl, do look her up online. I think her sacrifice is worth knowing. And because of all the international pressure and the national pressure on FIFA and government of Iran, finally that's changing. Women in Iran right now are buying tickets for a soccer game inside Iran that will be taking place this month. It's true that what Dr. King said, that the moral arc bends towards justice. But that arc is really long, is, I think, beyond our lifetimes. If we don't step back enough and realize how many decades it takes, we can lose heart. So I want us to remember that this work is hard, and we need to continue, and we need to step back to see the change we want to see. And I want to wrap up by thanking the tireless activists and artists that are here. And she works a full-time job as being sick and did this incredible, amazing work. I don't know how. And I want us, if you're moved to action, I have 3 things we can do. Download the app we mentioned. camp does incredible work. It's such an honor to have our logo on this wall. I just cannot tell you. And art needs all of our support. And there's 100 of us here today. If we each even donate $10, we can raise $1,000 for camp today. So who's in with me to, while we're here, before we go on Facebook or Instagram, donating on their website? Let's do it. Let's try to raise $1,000 today. And for ours, we have our postcards there. It's such an honor to speak in the Bay Area. Usually I'm traveling and speaking somewhere else, and to be here with our community, and our office is in Berkeley. And our email address is there. It's info, but it goes to my inbox as well if you're interested in getting involved. Sign up for our newsletter. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone. Hey. My name is Sepideh Gholian, and I wanted to, before, this is too low for me.
That was from me.
I also wanted to thank everyone, Megan, and especially, yes, this incredible woman here, Shaghayer, and her team has been working tirelessly, and I admire your passion and your hard work, and thank you for everything you've done, because we're standing here today because she really wanted to make this happen along with her team. So give it up for Shaghayer one more time, please. It's really an honor to be with all of you here today. For those of, some of you might know me because we've got lots of familiar faces here. For those of you who don't, my name is Sepideh Gholian. I'm an author. My debut novel, Children of the Jacaranda Tree, dealt with the aftermath of the Iranian Revolution and the political repression that ensued. It told stories that were biographical and others that were historical. But that is how Iran's story has been for a long time now. The historical bearing on the personal, the biographical mingling with the symbolic, the allegories unrelentingly political, and the combination a load we are to carry everywhere we go. I was born in Evin prison in 1983. My parents were leftist activists fighting against the newly established Islamic regime. My mother was pregnant with me when she was arrested. I was born in Evin just a few days before the beginning of fall. 5 years later, towards the end of another hot, dusty summer in 1988, my uncle was executed. His body was dumped into a mass grave in Khavaran Cemetery, along with hundreds of other political prisoners. This violence has been a painful, intimate, perpetual part of my personal history and story. Born in Evin, I'm not, however, the only child of prisoners here today. There are many of us. There could be a child of a prisoner standing right next to you now, or a child born in prison, or a child who has lost a parent in that bloody summer 30 years ago. We are many, and we are everywhere. In Iran, Germany, Sweden, California, Italy, or Canada. We are a wounded generation, a proud generation. We are hurt and still healing. We have ideas that sometimes don't make any sense, and ideals that are bigger than us. We are a generation of war, of revolution, of immigration and displacement, of prison and protests. We struggle to survive and adjust and understand and be happy and brave and forgiving and full of rage and love at the same time. But history does not stop here. It does not stop with us. As we stand here today, there are still mothers and fathers perishing in Iranian prisons. Women and men who are behind bars because they have dared to dream and fight for a better world, for a brighter future, a more just and free society. There are social workers, lawyers, union leaders, journalists, children's rights advocates, environmentalists, teachers, and many more. It is important to know their faces, their smiles, their names, and their lives. As I watched Shaghayer add one more face to this beautiful mural, I could not help but think that 30 years ago, one of these faces could have been that of my mother's. Iran's strife for freedom, social justice, civil rights, and democracy has a long history. It did not start today. It did not start 40 years ago at the dawn of the Iranian Revolution, before it was stolen by the Islamic regime, but even before that, long before any of us, even the eldest amongst here today, was alive. In 1953, a CIA-orchestrated coup helped crush a democratically elected government and restore the Shah's brutal, oppressive regime. This was a first for both countries. It was the first strife of democracy for Iran, and it was the first time America used its extraordinary military powers to stifle it. But history has shown us that both the American and the Iranian people are a lot more noble than their governments. That they both know the answer is not and has never been war and military intervention of any kind. Throughout its modern history, American people have shown that every time their government begins the drumbeat of war, its people fight back, taking to the streets if necessary, to stop the cruel, unhinged madness of those in power. The people might not have been successful every time, but they have shown that they do not stand on the side of warmongers, neither in Iran nor in America. Because as once again history has shown us, war brings nothing but devastation. This is painfully evident in our region now. Syria, Yemen, Libya, Afghanistan, Iraq. The list could go on and on. Not only war has wreaked havoc on human scales unimaginable to us, it has also brutalized and stunted any beacon of hope for change in these countries. It has led to even more political crackdown, more social oppression, more cultural massacre, and even more humanitarian catastrophe. And that is why we are both more noble than our governments, because we choose to look at history, because we choose to learn from it, because we choose to be on the right side of it. What happens to Iran depends on what happens to the world, where we are going as a human society, what we believe in, what ideals we stand for, and what we are willing to do for the other's serenity, prosperity, and dignity. I believe that today my country's destiny is part of the shared destiny of the world. And in that shared destiny, we must honor all those who have stood up, who have resisted, and who have taught us that being silent is not always the answer. Thank you.
On March 8th, the International Women's Day, three civil activists, Yasaman Aryani, her mother, Monire Arabshavi, and Mojgan Keshavars, offered flowers and pastry to passengers in Tehran's subway while having their scarves off. They chose the most peaceful method to protest against the forced veiling, and because of that, they're facing a total of 55 years in prison, with convictions such as propaganda against the regime, and encouraging and facilitating corruption and prostitution. At no point during the process, neither during the interrogations, nor even trial sessions, were the defense attorneys allowed to attend. Jamal Kermani, 1 year for pro-democracy activism. Reyhane Haj Ibrahim Dabba, 15 years for supporting or membership in dissident groups. Sepideh Gholian, 7 years for labor rights activism. Mariam Shariat Madari, 1 year for women's rights activism. Amir Nouri, 5 years for religious minority practice. Omid Ali Shenas, 5 years for human rights activism. Mohammad Haydari, 7 years for participating in bodybuilding competitions in Israel. Behnaz Zakeri Ansari, 10 years for supporting or membership in dissident groups.